Control the kitchen chaos and streamline your back-of-house operations with Restaurant Technologies. Restaurant Technologies' Total Oil Management Solution is the end-to-end automated oil management system that delivers, filters, monitors, and recycles your cooking oil, taking the dirtiest job out of the kitchen and lets your employees focus on more important tasks. The Total Oil Management Solution helps prevent the burns, spills, slips, and falls that come with traditional oil management. Restaurant Technologies gives you and your employees peace of mind among the chaos of a commercial kitchen and can maximize efficiency for your business. And no upfront cost. Learn more about Restaurant Technologies and all the solutions they offer by visiting rti-inc.com or call 888-796-4997.
Hi there, and welcome to Menu Talk. I'm Pat Cobe, Senior Editor of Restaurant Business, and I'm here with
Bret Thorn, Senior Food and Beverage Editor of Nation's Restaurant News and Restaurant Hospitality. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome. Yeah, good to see you, Bret. Bret and I were in Chicago earlier this week, or actually last week, but it was nice to be back there, and we got to sample a bunch of restaurants because we went on a kind of taste around in the West Loop. So you want to talk about that a little bit, Bret? Some of the restaurants we went to?
Sure. We were there for IFEC, the International Foodservice Editorial Council, an organization of food service trade publication editors and publicists who want to get our attention. And it is, 68 years old?
Right.
And it's not going to live to be 69 because for a variety of reasons, it's closing up shop, and we're going to have to find a new way to get together with all of these people that we've enjoyed networking with for so long. But at this short, truncated conference, the first night was a little dine-around, as Pat said, sponsored by different commodity boards, as IFEC does. And we went to a variety of different restaurants. My group started at Rosemary, which is Joe Flamm's restaurant. You might know him from Top Chef, or if you're in the, you are in the restaurant industry, probably if you're listening to this, you would know that he worked with Tony Mancuano at Spiaggia for a long time,
right,
among other things. And he served some delicious ribs and a gnocchi that people wouldn't shut up about. They love the gnocchi so much. But I actually was more blown away by the Porchetta Sandwich at Publican Quality Meats. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't have a chance to sample that because I wasn't quick enough. But I did sample all the other pork that they had out. And I enjoyed the demo of the spatchcock chicken because I had never seen anyone actually do that before, although I've purchased spatchcocked chickens to cook. But it looked pretty easy. Maybe I'll try it.
Well, I mean, it's always easy when you're watching a chef do it.
True.
Because, they're professionals and they know what they're doing.
So tell me about the porchetta sandwich.
Well, it was just delicious. It was just beautifully roasted, flavored, aromatic pork on, obviously, Publican's own bread that was soft on the inside with a wonderful crunchy crust on the outside. And, we do a lot of eating at IFEC and at all conferences. It's part of our job. We eat. And, a big old sandwich, I'm going to take a bite and say, thank you for the sandwich. But it was so good that I just ate all of it. And, everything from the crunchiness of the bread to all of the aromatics that were in the pork to just the unctuousness of the pork itself was a huge, it was a thrill for me, and I eat so many things that I don't normally,
Yeah, well, I did try the other pork. They had some little pork belly bites that I think I tried. I think it was pork belly. I mean, I know I tried it. And also the mortadella that they make in-house. So it is called Publican Quality Meats. So it was a very meaty tasting.
Right. And regular listeners to the podcast will recall that I just interviewed their head charcutier, Rob Levitt, who is delightful. He wasn't actually there. Their chef de cuisine was there. And he was sensational as well.
I also like the little watermelon dishes we had at Leña Brava.
Yes.
That they were very good. And that was obviously sponsored by the Watermelon Board. Uh, the rosemary dishes, both of them had like a walnut sauce or walnut crema, and that was sponsored by the Walnut Board, California walnuts.
Right, and that bite that you had at Publican Quality Meats had mango on it because the mango board
Right.
sponsored that, and it was
Yeah.
delicious. I mean, pork and mango. How are you gonna
Yeah.
go?
No,
And
it was really good.
sorry, and when you have the skill of Publican, the whole Publican groups, all of one-off hospitalities restaurants are always so good. I just really like going there, and we might be having Paul Kahn on the podcast in a little while.
Oh, cool.
Chef. Yeah,
Yeah.
they reached out, so I'm not going to say no, even though
Well,
we just have Rob Levitt on.
yeah, no, they've been in business a long time, and their restaurant IFEC has been there forever. So that really speaks to the quality of their hospitality and food and everything else, and chefs.
And Leña Brava, I guess, is under new ownership because they said formerly Rick Bayless. I didn't know that it had changed hands, but I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And what they serve little, pretty complex watermelon dishes, little small bites, which for me was great because it was my last stop of the night. You were on a different location, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But they also served a spirit-free watermelon beverage that I thought was really delicious. And
Mm-hmm.
I wish I'd noted what was in it, but I didn't. But I remember really enjoying it. I don't drink a lot of spirit-free drinks. If there are going to be calories in my drinks, I want there to be alcohol in them also. But as I'm sure I've said before, I really love the spirit-free trend because just because someone doesn't drink doesn't mean you shouldn't show them a wonderful, excellent time. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to charge them for,
Right.
what it costs to make a really well thought out alcohol-free beverage.
And they are getting a lot better. I think they're less sugary and more complex. And I also had a chance in Chicago to revisit Eataly, which I hadn't been to in a really long time. But the restaurants there are still really doing a great job. The one we ate at was was a wine focused restaurant. I forgot the name of it, unfortunately. But I had this really delicious lemon pasta and a branzino that we shared with the table. But both of them were really executed well, and they had a nice wine list and good cocktails. So it was a really good experience. So I might revisit the Italy in New York because I haven't been there for ages.
And there are actually a couple. There's one downtown, like way downtown, and
Mhm.
one near Madison Square Park. And maybe, is there a third? I don't know. There's Italy, the New York version, or the U.S. version of Eataly is based in New York City. It's a global brand, but
Mhm.
they have really good products because it is mostly a retail space, but their restaurants are also sensational. And some of the best espresso in New York City also, I think.
Mm. Well, I'll have to go back and try that too. They also have gelato now, which is one of my favorite things. So
Yes.
could do a whole good tasting tour there.
Oh, for sure, for days. So I'm still continuing to explore my neighborhood or my neighborhoods, as I've discussed before. I live really at the nexus of Sheepshead Bay, Brighton Beach, and Manhattan Beach, and both Brighton Beach and Sheepshead Bay are very Eastern European, which continues to be a fun adventure.
Mhm.
Sometimes I don't want an adventure; I just want a meal. But one thing that they have in abundance is the supermarkets have really good frozen Eastern European dumplings.
Mm.
So I picked up some lamb ones. I think pelmeni. They could be Verenica. I honestly don't know the difference yet between pelmeni and Verenica. So if any of you listeners are experts on Eastern European dumplings, please let me know. But they're lamb, and it's like a boil and eat kind of situation, which is really nice at home when you just want some dumplings. And I boiled them, and traditionally, Eastern Europeans would serve them with sour cream. And so I had my sour cream because since I live in that neighborhood, I keep sour cream lying around. It just, I want to fit in. but I also have kind of a global palate. I've been around a lot. So I thought, wait a minute, do I really need only to have sour cream? So I added this Chinese black vinegar to it and stirred that in,
Mm.
along with some chili crisps, because I just
Mm.
wrote a feature about chili crisp that will be published any day now on nrn.com. And so I made sort of a multicultural, I'm going to go out on a limb and say kind of a ranch dressing, because you got the sour cream instead of buttermilk,
Mm.
sour cream, and just malty black vinegar, and then a little spiciness. And I recommend that if you are looking for something to dip your Russian/Ukrainian lamb dumplings in.
Well, it's not so far out because, I mean, Russia's not that far from Mongolia and China. So
Right.
why not?
There are neighbors.
Mhm.
And obviously there's been a lot of cultural dialogue, as the anthropologists
Mhm.
call it. In fact, the Mongols ruled Russia for a couple of centuries. They conquered it
Right.
when they were busy conquering everything, and there's still some influence there. That's why steak tartare is called steak tartare. There's the Tartars, who are not the same as the Mongols, but they were all generalized to be the same thing. That's right.
Mm. Well, that sounds like a really interesting combo.
You know, I love mixing things around and figuring it out.
Mhm.
As I
I
hope
mean,
all
we get a lot of things in that we get some products that are sent to us, and so our refrigerators are always full of some odd condiments, and so it's always fun to mix and match. And
When I've been picking up things in my neighborhood, I think I might have mentioned the mulberry sauce that I got
Mhm.
at my fast casual Georgian restaurant, Georgian Star. And then there's a little Chinese shop that sells a lot of fish, because the good people of my neighborhood love their fish. There are a ton of sushi restaurants in the neighborhood,
Mm.
because apparently Russians and Ukrainians like sushi. Why not? A lot
Well,
of people.
everybody likes sushi now,
Right.
so.
Yeah, but this Chinese shop has also all sorts of condiments. So I have two different kinds of Chinese black vinegar. One is sort of richer and maltier, and the other one is lighter. And I found some Szechuan peppercorn oil that's just a clear oil infused with Szechuan peppercorn. So if you just want at the end of anything you're cooking to add that tingly, numbing taste,
Mm.
I have it now. So I
Cool.
put it on popcorn. That was fun. And and they have all sorts of different. I was actually looking for chili crisp, and this place is so Chinese that they don't have the current newfangled things like chili crisp, but they had all sorts of different chili pastes that are now sitting in my fridge for me to play around with.
We
So
should definitely go on a walking tasting tour of your neighborhood. Sounds pretty awesome.
come on down. We'll start with calamari at Randazzo's, because
Oh, okay.
let's have some calamari. Or, well, there's so many options. We couldn't do it in one trip.
No. Well, I actually won some caviar at a food event. As I bought a raffle ticket and I won like a sampler pack of caviar. So that gave me an excuse to do a brunch for Marathon Sunday, which took place in New York yesterday.
Yep.
And I made little blinnies with buckwheat flour and served my caviar with the blinnies and a little dollop of sour cream, and went over really well. So
Well, yeah, how would it not?
yeah.
That would, if you ever want to go caviar shopping and spend your own money, there's apparently some really well-priced caviar shops in Brighton Beach that we could stroll into. And
Okay. Well, you're making it sound more and more tempting.
I mean, it's a really cool neighborhood.
Yeah. Sounds it.
Speaking of winning things, I won a costume contest at my favorite bar located in the Park Slope neighborhood of Brooklyn called Logan's Run. I mean, there weren't that many entries into the contest. It was the weekend before Halloween, so I don't think that many people were feeling the spirit yet. But I dressed as a vampire, and I got some of those prosthetic teeth that you can mold to your own teeth. I didn't do a very good job, so they had a tendency to fall out. And also, I have trouble speaking when I have uh, prosthetic things. But I stayed sort of in character, so I ordered mozzarella sticks with marinara sauce, that were delicious, but I know I could act like I was eating human fingers and the blood and everything like that.
Yes,
And
definitely.
yeah, I mean, and often at Logan's Run, I drink whiskey and soda, but because I was a vampire, I drank red wine, and the the fellow denizens of the bar really enjoyed my effect that I had this full on.
Well, cool. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, I won a $75 gift certificate to that very bar. So, they're just
Oh, I'm sure you'll use it. Yeah.
yes, maybe tonight. Because tomorrow I'm leaving town and I'm going to the San Francisco Bay Area to the Culinary Institute of America Worlds of Flavor Conference. So if anybody is listening to this and is going to be there, hey, hit me up. We'll hang out. And then I'll be spending that weekend with friends in San Francisco. So there will be many
Nice.
adventures for me to report on. I hope.
I'm sure there will be. Yeah. I mean, that's a great eating adventure in itself.
Yes, both Napa and the Worlds of Flavor Conference, as well as, I shouldn't have said both because there are three, and San Francisco, a wonderful food city all around, and a fun place. I like hanging out in San Francisco.
Well, I know I talked about this on a previous podcast, but I finally got a chance to try Wonder, which is a food hall concept, kind of. It's a company that curates restaurants, and you can order from several different chef inspired restaurants that are all under one platform. And it's really a great deal because they have some really famous chefs who have contributed their recipes to this concept. And I got to try something from Jonathan Waxman, who's a chef, very well known chef, who's started Barbudo, and he used to work at Jams, I think, or maybe not. But anyway, he has a restaurant called Walnut Lane that's under the Wonder brand, and I ordered a really good pasta with a hazelnut pesto and shrimp, and a kale salad that was much better than the typical kale salad. It had like breadcrumbs and Parmesan cheese, and it was just really good. And it came really quickly in nice containers, and I was really impressed.
That's even
So I would do it again.
And
Yeah,
Wonder's a virtual food hall, right? It's like a little tiny storefront, but they have
right.
from all sorts of different chefs.
But I think some of the location, they have mostly locations in New York now, I believe.
Yeah,
Maybe a few in Chicago. But I think they say you could dine in, but I don't think they have a lot of tables. I guess if you go up there and order something and it's ready, you can sit down and eat it there if you'd like.
yeah. I walked by the one in Park Slope, my former Brooklyn neighborhood, and I believe there were like some benches and tables and stuff.
Hmm.
You could eat there if you wanted, but it's a little shop.
Yeah, I think it's more conducive to ordering and having it delivered or picking it up and bringing it home.
Yes.
So,
Well, as restaurants figure out different ways to manage their bottom line in these continuously challenging times, having options like that where there's minimal real estate and you don't have to commit to
mhm.
running a full restaurant, it seems like a good way either to be as an established chef to make extra cash or as a newcomer to kind of figure out what of the food that you make is economically viable.
Right. Well, it was hard to choose which one to choose, which item or restaurant I wanted to eat from because Marcus Samuelson has one on the platform. JJ Johnson, who was on our podcast a couple of months ago, he has a new seafood restaurant there. So there are really a lot of good choices.
Well, fortunately, you don't have to eat it all at once. You can go back.
No. Well, speaking of well-known and revered chefs. I did a podcast interview with Michael Mina, who just came out with a new cookbook that sort of goes back to his roots in Egypt, although he left there when he was 2 years old. But he rediscovered, some of the dishes that his family had been making all these years and put them together in a cookbook called My Egypt. But he is also, busy opening more restaurants. He has over 30 now, and is still going strong. And he said he's really ramping up this year. So I wanted to play a couple of clips from the interview. He starts off by talking about how when back in like the 90s, it was thought that chefs should not open more than one restaurant because they should focus on cooking in that one restaurant kitchen. And if they expanded too much, they were losing, some of their cred. But he talks about why it was important for restaurateurs and chefs to expand.
Chefs started expanding back then and did more than one restaurant. There was a little bit of media backlash back then of like, well, who's going to be in the kitchen and everything else. And I think that everyone, in my opinion, I felt like chefs should expand. Great restaurateurs should expand, but chefs shouldn't be limited to one restaurant, because I felt like it could really help the food in the country as a whole if chefs were the ones that, really were driving businesses and driving restaurant companies that had multiple restaurants, because of, I think that it was the perfect storm of when people started to just get more and more interested in food and the products and what they're putting in their body and just the creativity of it. So it was a really good time, and knock on wood, I think it all worked out that way, because you see it now. Chefs that used to say to me, "Oh, I never have more than one restaurant," I always laugh at them now. I'm like, you have multiple restaurants, because we all realized it's not any one of us. It's like we're not magicians. We're not cooking for 80 people by ourselves. It's a team, and the team is creating together, and the team is cooking together, and the team is working together. And yeah, you might be the conductor. That doesn't mean that you're the only person that can do that.
Totally. And also, like, part of being a chef is training people and teaching them and fostering them. And once they're ready to take over a kitchen, they will either quit or you give them the opportunity to take over a kitchen. And so you open another restaurant, etc. And this is how you create a lovely and constructive culture that provides opportunity to everybody. It's like what Paul Kahn does with one-off hospitality, as we discussed.
Right.
And those are the people that not only can they create a good business model, but they keep training and teaching people and giving them the opportunity to spread their own wings and fly.
Well, Michael Mina himself was mentored by Charlie Palmer. That was his first job in New York at Oriole. And then he actually opened Aqua in San Francisco with George Marone, who's another really revered chef. And so he's now mentoring, he's been in the business now for 30 years, but he's mentored so many people that have gone on to open restaurants in his empire.
Yeah, so, he has his own training program, right? It's called Minaverse, something like that.
Yeah. He's a really great example of, somebody who's built some amazing restaurants and mentored a lot of people. And now he's going to talk a little bit about how he created the Mina Group and found that hotels were really the best venues for him. He still has, I think, one or two freestanding restaurants, but most of his restaurants are in hotels now.
It's my Egypt. It's what I knew about Egypt growing up, because I was born in Egypt, but I moved when I was 2. So Egypt to me was my mother's 7 brothers and sisters that all lived within 100 miles of us. And so it was more about an Egyptian household and growing up and, having 30 people every weekend that at the table all day long, and all the food on the table and everything else. And so it was more about my journey and wanting to, say, yes, I started out, been very blessed to have cooked many cuisines. And I started out in a household where if you taste Middle Eastern food, as everybody has, or it is strong in flavor. Like it's high in acid, high in sweetness, high in spice, high in fat, and it's very flavorful food, similar to like, certain Asian cuisines, and, they're bold flavors. And so that's, I think, what really got me. One, that I cooked with my mom a lot, but that was what I really took away from it is like, I loved food with a lot of flavor. And so it had a big influence on my cooking. And then in different restaurants, I would dabble with it and, and it was always really the food that I grew up eating.
Well, I guess these are a little out of order. I apologize for that. But he was talking about his cookbook and how he really didn't cook a lot of Middle Eastern food in his restaurants until the book started coming together. And now his latest restaurant is called Orla, which just opened in Santa Monica. And that is all Egyptian. He calls it Mediterranean a little bit, but it has a lot of the Egyptian influence. But he really elevated what his mother had been cooking all his life, and it sounds like a great place.
Mediterranean, I love that, and I also love that perspective of his Egypt is his family, and I think that's true with many, many, many Americans that are the countries of our ancestry are rather removed from us, but the cultures and the traditions continue within our families, obviously reinterpreted for whatever context we're in. And I think that's such a lovely way to understand the way that cuisines evolve and talk to each other and get manifested in different ways.
Yeah, I don't know of any other restaurants that are really Egyptian focused in this country. I mean, there are probably mom and pops that are, but I mean, from a big, big name chef.
Yeah, I don't know about specifically Egyptian, obviously, plenty of Middle Eastern restaurants. And if you go to the Queens neighborhood of Astoria, there are a bunch of little Egyptian restaurants.
Right.
But yeah, in terms of big name, I don't, if there are any readers, audience, please let us know.
Well, it's interesting. He said that like Egyptian food is really influenced a lot by Greek food, which I never made the connection before, but because of, Alexander the Great conquering all that whole area, the foods of both countries got intermingled. So
when they're right across from each other on the Mediterranean, I mean,
right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Doing this concept in the test kitchen called Mediterranean, it was just kind of like, because it was what I grew up eating, it was Mediterranean, Middle Eastern food is what I was really eating. And by this point, I had realized that a lot of what I grew up eating was actually Greek, or had a lot of Greek influence in it because of long, you had the rule, starting from Alexander the Great to, in Alexandria, to how long, Egypt was ruled, under the regime. And I started with one trip and said, I want to just take a trip and start to kind of document and understand it, and whether what's going to turn into a restaurant, turn into a book, or turn into nothing. I just want to understand it.
That's when he went to Egypt to, rediscover the foods that he really wasn't familiar with except at his family table. And
well, it's interesting that he said that some of the stuff he just wanted to be familiar with. And I like that because, sometimes, you and I are under pressure to report on every damn thing that happens in our lives. And in fact, sometimes just letting it wash over you is the way to really understand something.
Right. And he actually met up with an Egyptian chef named Mustafa. I hope that is playing in this next clip, who did a lot of street foods, but together they figured out how to elevate these street foods and make them into restaurant food. So
name was Mustafa. And so I met him and he changed my life. He was just this ball of energy, just like he's so knowledgeable, and then had this great young group of chefs that had all worked for him, and they were all now doing things in Egypt. And then they just got me so inspired. And we would, the first trip, we're cooking in the dirt together, burying food and cooking it, and the farms and everything from that to going to restaurants to doing. So I started to see all of the things that I had grown up eating, and only seen the way my mom made them. But then I started seeing the way that they are made in Egypt. And, that's always a very dynamic difference than just one household, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's so passionate about this, and the book actually just was published, so it's called My Egypt, and a lot of the recipes are in there. But he also talks about how he's translating them into the menu at Orla, and he'll also be doing cookbook dinners at all his other restaurants. So even like Bourbon Steak will have a cookbook dinner, with all dishes from his cookbook.
Well, that's neat. Have you been to the Bourbon Steak in New York yet?
I haven't, but I want to go and have this Egyptian menu.
Well,
I know you went and had a fabulous steak dinner, but
yes, but hey, Egyptian, man, maybe follow the Egyptian food with a steak.
yeah, if I have room.
Yeah.
Well, this is the last clip from our conversation.
My mom's falafel, which was one of my favorite dishes in the world. And it just with tahina and with salad beledi, which is just like tomatoes and jalapeno peppers and red onions and vinegar and oil and parsley. And she would do it in pocket bread. And I was like, I'm going to put a piece of ahi tuna or yellowfin tuna on it and make a crudo out of it, keep the foundation and elevate the dish. And I think that's always a great way to move your cuisine forward, is don't lose the foundation and the ingredients, the techniques, the stories behind it. Don't lose that, but put some innovation into it to keep it moving forward. And so the book does both of those. It shows you the foundational piece of it, but then it also shows you an innovative, what we did with it and what we're doing with it in the restaurants now. So in Orla, and so Orla is the restaurant that really was created off of the book.
Yeah, so it sounds really interesting. I just can't wait to try it. I don't think the menus are set yet in all of his restaurants, but it's just really interesting. And the part that I didn't play that I found really compelling was the fact that he feels that it's so much better and so much more profitable, I guess, to partner with a hotel, because the hotel takes care of all the management, and all the, the details. But now he's bringing in, since the pandemic, he kind of reorganized his company, and now he's doing the HR and he's doing the training, and he's not leaving that to the hotel. He brings in his own people to hire and to train and to do all of that. But the hotel is the venue where he's set up. So it's a really interesting model.
Well, to have the support of the hotel and I'm sure financial backing makes perfect sense. And this is something that Michael and I discussed, I think last year, maybe I did an interview with him. And if you visit Restaurant Hospitality's website and search for Michael Mina, it'll come right up, and you can listen to that as well. Because I don't ever get tired of listening to Michael Mina. He's a great guy and very interesting and a very capable chef and restaurateur.
Yeah, and he has a great deep voice too. I love his voice.
That too. Yes. Yeah, and I don't think there are a whole lot of Egyptian American chefs out there. If they are,
no,
I don't know. But Michael's great.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited that you'll be reporting about your California trip next week. And can't wait to hear about Worlds of Flavor. I haven't been there in a while, but I used to go, and it's a very worthwhile and delicious event.
Absolutely, yeah, and I'm looking forward to that a lot. And I don't know what I'm going to learn, which is the whole point of going. If you
Yeah,
know,
cool.
then you could stay home.
Well, we'll look forward to hearing what you learn next week.
Yes, and hope everybody tunes in.
Control the kitchen chaos and streamline your back of house operations with Restaurant Technologies. Restaurant Technologies' total oil management solution is the end-to-end automated oil management system that delivers, filters, monitors, and recycles your cooking oil, taking the dirtiest job out of the kitchen and lets your employees focus on more important tasks. The total oil management solution helps prevent the burns, spills, slips, and falls that come with traditional oil management. Restaurant Technologies gives you and your employees peace of mind among the chaos of a commercial kitchen and can maximize efficiency for your business. And no upfront cost. Learn more about Restaurant Technologies and all the solutions they offer by visiting rti-inc.com or call 888-796-4997.